Hey, everybody. On this episode of Extra Time, the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast, we're talking Weston McKennie's potential transfers to Tottenham, as well as where we'd like to see the rest of the U.S. players go. We're talking what Chris and I think our 26-man roster is going to look like versus what it probably should look like, as well as touching a little bit on Greg Berhalter's tactics and how our players fall into tactics, and maybe a little bit of comparison of the MLS and the EPL. All that is coming up on this episode of Extra Time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for another episode. I got my friend Chris here. He's back for another week. Chris, I appreciate you joining me, man. Down in the Carolinas, man, how's the weather today?
Today was beautiful. I mean, we had sunshine all day. People down here would tell you it's cold, but it felt great to me. It was high as 60, in the 50s in the morning and the evening. Felt great.
Yeah, it was 39 degrees and raining today in Northwest Ohio, so we were having the time of our lives up here. Really recently, actually, and you and I had just basically started messaging about it as soon as it happened. I love our chat. I love the little group chat that we have, especially getting Zay involved in this Premier League stuff, right? Picking up the Gunners. I don't know anything if he watched before, but it's going to be tough to not have him be a bandwagon person at the moment. But it's fun for me, and it's kind of fun for us, right? Because it's another London team. It's another team at the top of the table. We got a good rivalry. But as far as all those chats go, a lot of rumors now starting up, right? January is very quickly approaching. Coaches have gotten to see their players through the first couple weeks, the first couple months of the Premier League. And it just came out. Juventus, this is not really a shock to anybody who's been following. If you haven't been following, ever since Weston McKennie got injured, and he broke a bunch of his, what's the word, the M word for your foot? The thing in your foot. I don't know. He broke a bunch of the little bones in his foot. Metatarsals. Thank you. That's why I have you on. That's why I have you on this. Ever since he broke a bunch of his metatarsals, he just, he's come back. He's obviously not in the same kind of fitness. It takes a while to get back to that peak match fitness. Juventus doesn't have the patience. I can't say I blame them. This is something you see in all professional sports, not just the EPL. So Juventus is looking to make a move. Tottenham is interested. They reached out and they said that they're considering this. They're considering this probably for a whole number of reasons, which we're going to start to speculate. And I'm excited, one, as a U.S. men's fan, two, as a Tottenham fan. And so when you heard this, right, Chris, like what are your thoughts? You think Tottenham is a good fit for Weston? You think this is the direction he should be going?
I don't know. I was a little bit of two minds because I can see he's been frustrated. I don't think he's been used very well at Juventus this year. Last year, especially the beginning of last year, he was playing. When he played somewhere generally in the center of the field. And that's obviously from what we've seen, that's where he thrives. That's where he likes to play. Mm-hmm. Sort of that attacking central midfielder. Or even, a full box-to-box, going both ways midfielder. And he scored some good goals for them. He gave them a lot of good production last year. And this year, he has pretty much only played on the wing. And he doesn't look comfortable out there. He doesn't look really engaged out there. If you watch any of their games recently, he's there some of the time, but it kind of looks like he's floating around a lot of the time when you watch. So on the one hand, I do think he needs a change of scenery. He does need something different. That would be, a different change of the system at Juventus or moving to a different team. Either would work, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Hmm.
he needs something to change, and I would love to see that change, to see him get invigorated and really get back into his playing passionately the way he did when he started at Juventus, and how he was playing at Schalke. He was so just so fiery in there, and always working hard. And now sometimes it's hard to say that he's really working his best out there.
Right.
Do I think Tottenham is the place for him to go? Maybe. Obviously they took Bentancur and Kulusevski last year from Juventus, so they are keeping an eye on Juventus. Like, that is apparently one of the places they look for talent. You hope that means that they have been watching and that they like what they've seen. I guess I'm just not sure then where he fits into the Tottenham system.
Agreed. And I do.
Is he like a backup for the center?
Right. Right, and that's one of the things I know that when we look through that U.S. lens, right, through the red, white, and blue lens, we've been finding ourselves really frustrated recently with U.S. players getting traded, transferred, sold, however you want to word it, to bigger clubs, but being backups to a better thing, right? And if you haven't accepted what I'm about to say yet, this is your time to accept it. That's Christian Pasilic, right? He went to Chelsea, and he did great for Chelsea in the first time that he started, and he got American fans hyped up. And I don't know if it was, U.S. soccer itself, if it was just the rest of the world not being ready for Americans, the stigma, whatever it is, his injuries, he's fallen to his very solidified role that, he is a backup, like the first sub on, right? So I guess saying backup's a bad word, right? He's like the go-to sub to come on in most of these games, and that's not where we want to see anybody else. When I think about Weston McKennie, in the games that I watch in Tottenham, Conte doesn't like rotating through an insane number of players, right? He's received a lot of criticism from the media, from his fans. He just plays this kind of one system. But the system that he plays is counterattacking, right? He plays like a mid-block, right? And they just kind of like choke everything up in the midfield, and their defense plays kind of compact. And when they get the ball, they look to just explode out through Richarlison, Kane, and Son. And if I had those players on my team, I could also agree to do that too. I mean, those guys are some of the best players in the world. But he does seem like there's some spots in the midfield that he might be looking to fill. And even if it's not this year, in the future years, right? Like, they picked up Perisic, but Perisic is the guy coming first off the bench, right? We're using him for his experience, we're using him for his talent. Fitness is kind of on the way out, right? Sessegnon plays, sometimes doesn't play, right? Bencatour and oh my gosh, it starts with an H. It's my team, and I can't think of his name. Was it Yeah. It's kind of the same thing, right? Like, they're very solidified players, right? But that doesn't mean that there might not be a kind of a tactics change. Going back to McKennie at Juventus, I loved seeing him in the center because he did something that the United States doesn't have. Now, if you listen to lots of other content creators on this is the one thing I personally think they have wrong. They believe the United States has players who play center defensive midfield or play center attacking midfield, and there's not really any middle ground. And I think Weston McKennie did both of those things. He wasn't necessarily like better at one than the other, right? But he was a player who he could build the ball out of the back. He could turn and in transition hit really long balls up over the top. He could also carry the ball forward and attack guys. He could play the ball to his holding striker and make overlapping runs. He could do in and outs. He could do overlapping runs. He was so aggressive and so determined on the pitch. Take your free kicks, win balls in the air. And seeing him out on the wing, not only is it frustrating for his development, it's also frustrating as a USA fan because I feel like we have enough wingers.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it
I
goes,
think wingers probably our deepest position.
oh, easily.
Since so many of our that you see like wide, and they are more comfortable wide. So
right, we're trying to lock up that center midfield spot, and we need him. So the good news is, right, if he goes to Tottenham, it's good news for me, right, because I'm going to be excited. It's good news for the United States because we're still staying at a Premier League level team. Tottenham is top 3, fighting for top of the table in the Premier League, right? Even if he's getting bench minutes, if he that line, I could see him even as a sub consistently coming in 65th, 70th minute. I understand 20, 25 minutes a game is not ideal, but it's better than what a lot of our other players are getting, and I could see him easily working himself into the squad. The other reason I think this might be coming is because Bayern Munich is eyeing Harry Kane. And if Bayern Munich goes to take Harry Kane, which as a Tottenham fan, I would be very disappointed because he's really come into form recently. And I know he's been hit or miss with wanting to go in and out and just, because he just wants to win, right? Like he just wants to be the best. And I know after that Champions League final loss, years back, right, he's just like everybody else, like, I'm not content playing for a team that isn't going to want to get there, but I'm hoping he has some patience because the players around him are solid. So all of those things would be good. Correct. All of those things would be great. The downside is it's going to come in January after the World Cup is over, right? Which means a couple of things. The first thing is he could blow it, right? The World Cup, Cup is going to be a platform where a lot of players are going to get looked at, and I'm unsure of the lens that coaches are going to look at for. The other downside is the World Cup's going to be over, so all of this amazing playing time and experience he could be getting isn't really going to help us until 4 years from now, which is only if he's still playing for Tottenham. So, that's that kind of is what it is. But that also brings us to a bigger conversation that we have, which is that U.S. soccer is sort of trapped in that void right now because all of the players that need to move can't move or aren't going to move until January. And we're stuck in all this young talent coming up, playing overseas, doing all this stuff, and we've plateaued because no one's getting any playing time. And teams are starting to fall out of favor with the United States. We see Sergiño Dest leaving Barcelona to go to AC Milan only to basically just start a dumpster fire from day one at AC Milan and have the rest of the fans go, why is this guy playing? And now he's only playing because their first string and second string right backs are hurt. Yikes. Not where we want to be, right? We see Christian Pulisic that we talked about right at Chelsea where he probably wants to get out. Chelsea probably wants him out. Well, actually, I don't know if Chelsea, the fans might want him out, but Chelsea itself doesn't want him out, and they probably don't have to let him go. And so Pulisic could kind of just be trapped there.
He's a great backup plan for them.
Right. And teams it's their money, right? So if they want to just keep Christian on retainer to have him on the bench, coming off.
I am interested to see, if he reintegrated a little bit more with Graham Potter and with Thomas Tuchel. He has started a couple games, I think, since Potter came back or since Potter took over. So we'll see if he earns a spot there, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of Tuchel, I did say in our group text the day he got fired that he was going to get fired. I was like, Chelsea's going to let this man go. And it was hours later, and it was he's gone. Yeah.
The big thing with Tuchel, just as a quick aside, he's just not a good people person.
No, not at all.
His players don't like him. And I think he rubs most of the management the wrong way. So every club he's been at, he's been there for 2 years, I think, at the most. Mm-hmm. And then people get sick of him, and he moves on.
Right. It's really similar to Jose Mourinho. You either love the guy or you hate the guy. And he seems to either jump into teams and be insanely successful, right? Or tank. So when he jumped into Tottenham Most of my friends they were so excited. They were like, dude, you guys landed Jose Mourinho. Like, he's going to turn your team around. And it was like 8 months later, if that. And it was like, nah, like, it's not going to happen because we just, Tottenham just had this trend of like, just, completely giving up and doing it. But that leaves us with what, like Leeds as our hope, right? So we got Aronson and Adams, who have been playing fantastic, right? They've been playing absolutely fantastic. And it leaves Jesse Marsch with this sort of, big question. Can he keep Leeds where they need to be, right? Can they take this teetering season, which, like, yes, they're sitting towards the bottom of the table, right? Mid to bottom table, but it's mostly off draws, right? Not a lot of wins.
Right around the middle.
Yeah, I want to say they're like 11th, maybe. So, like, not a lot of wins, not a lot of losses, a whole bunch of draws. But yeah, that's enough about overseas stuff, right? We got a lot of guys, and we're going to be talking obviously more overseas stuff as we talk about this now big question. So on November 5th, this is now the dumbest thing that I've have happened, because I don't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this has happened yet. I don't even know if you know about this, Chris. We're having a roster reveal party for the World Cup.
I did see that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that ever happening before.
No.
But maybe it has, and we just missed it. But
and this is why it's bad timing.
Silly.
It's bad timing. Here's why it's bad timing. Why is this the first one you're going to do? Why not 4 years from now when we're hosting it?
That's very true.
That would be a cool time, right? Because you could have all the players that are going to be on the team. They could all be there. And you could have you could do your stupid, corny stage, and the players could all walk out, and they could all be there, and they could all sit with whatever her name is and all the Paramount CBS staff, and you'd have to listen to Gooch and Dempsey and all those guys like just talk nonsense. And a side note, we really don't have very good announcers. Like we got Rob Stone, and that might be it. And like half the time, Rob Stone's got to suffer with Twellman as his co-commentator, and I just don't understand anything that has to happen. But anyway, so we're having this roster reveal party, and there are going to be 26 players on this roster. So here's what we're going to do, because I think this is a kind of cool idea. We're going to pick the 26 guys that we think should be on this roster, and then we're going to step back and we're going to think, what are we expecting to see? Right? So the 26 guys that you and I think should be on this roster, but what are we actually expecting to see? And we'll do it just like everybody else does, right? We'll start at the goalkeeping position and we'll move our way forward, right? So you get to take 3 goalies with you out of all the goalies that we have. Who are the 3 goalies you're taking in the order you're taking them?
The order is tough. I think the 3 is easy. I mean, it's Ethan Horvath, Matt Turner, and Zach Steffen to me. Like, they have shown themselves, as far as skills, to be much better than anybody else in the pool, I think. Now, the order of them, that's so hard, because a lot of that is just going to depend on like who's in good form from November. You know,
right?
Probably, if I just have to go with it, I'm saying I'm probably putting Matt Turner first, and then Zach Steffen, and then Ethan Horvath. But they're all close.
So I think that it has to be Matt Turner at number 1, right? I think Matt Turner absolutely has to be first. Just because he's going to be playing these Europa League games. He's going to be playing for Arsenal. Like, right. I just, and he's got the most amount of time playing with us. I agree that Ethan Horvath could be on there. I think is it Sean Johnson? It's Sean Johnson, right? For NYCFC. He's like the other goalie that we have. So I've heard, and I can kind of back this, like this idea that you could bring him because you get like this senior veteran goalkeeper. But like for me personally, I just kind of toss that aside because like, who are you? Right? Like, who are you? If I want to,
he is pretty good.
He's a good goalie, but like if I want a senior leader, you're typically bringing players who have been there, right? So like when NHL teams trade for veterans before the postseason.
Yeah.
They're trading for players who have been there, right? Like we're going to trade for a Claude Giroux who's been in the playoffs every year for, however many years. Like the guy knows his way around the block.
Yeah.
I'm
He
not
just
bringing
doesn't quite have the skills
right.
anymore.
I'm not bringing Sean Johnson. I like bringing Ethan Horvath because that guy's the future, right? And he's going to be your number 2 or number 1 down the road. Let's get this guy some experience. I guess you have to bring Zach Steffen. Like I don't like him, and I don't want to see him play, just because I just have never watched anything good happen, right? And you know me, you know how I get it. You got people, these players burn bridges with me real fast. And whatever game the Honduras game, I don't know, whatever one where like the guy just kicked the ball right at him and he just kind of stood there and was like, "What's happening?" And then like the ball went in and he was like, it looked like he was like trying to complain about something when he should just pick the ball up. That in his back, and he's currently not in great form for whoever he is. And, side argument, Ethan Horvath's also playing for Nottingham Forest, and that's not going great either. But like at least like Matt Turner stands on his head and has stood on his head for us repeatedly, and it just seems like that's something that we're going to need. But, obviously a lot can happen between them and there.
When we play England, we need somebody who's going to give it everything they got.
Yeah. At the end of this, I'm also curious to get your thoughts on what you think the scores to the group stage games are going to be. I think that'll be a good way to end this episode of this. So,
okay. All
right, let's go. We're going to go into the defense now, and you hit center backs. Okay. Let's start with 4. And then I believe that if you take 4 and then you take 4 of the defensive backs, and then when you do X number of midfielders and forwards, it leaves like 3 extra players that you normally wouldn't have. So I don't want to say like, let's pick 5 and assume your bonus one's going there. I'll let your bonus ones be wherever. So let's start. What do we got? 4. Actually, I'll do this one. I'll start this one because I let you do the goalie. So I got to take 4 center backs. Okay. My 4 center backs, I'm taking Walker Zimmerman. I'm taking Chris Richards as long as he's healthy and he's fine. I'm going to take Tim Ream. Right, I know he has not played a single minute. I'm going to take him. And then I'm personally torn between taking Cameron Carter-Vickers or Aaron Long. I'm not a huge fan of either one of them. I probably would take Cameron Carter-Vickers just because he's not playing in the MLS. But I like Walker Zimmerman and Tim Ream. I would love to see like Zimmerman with Chris Richards or Zimmerman with Ream or Ream with Chris Richards, however it is, just because we do want to try to build out of the back, and Ream is doing that. He's doing it for Fulham, and he has that experience. I also know that means I've seen him perform against, like I watched Tottenham shred Fulham, and I thought to myself, like, man, if we're going to put this guy back here, like, he's doing an okay job against, some of England's best, but I'm also like, dang, man, like, if our best is still going to lose 2-0, like, we need some work. But what 4 would you take?
Well, I think Walker Zimmerman is the definite one, like, without a doubt. He earned that spot.
Hands down. There's no debate. There's no debate on that one.
Chris Richards, I would take it. Yeah. I would take Chris Richards. He lacks experience, but he played a lot last year, and he's definitely learning the game more. But like as far as physical attributes that you want and the skills and passing ability that you want, he's got all that. It's just a matter of putting it together in his head. Mm-hmm. So I would take him, and even if he doesn't play a lot, he's getting that experience for next time. Because he will be there next time.
Right. And so the players that I think this leaves off, which, again, if you haven't been following, this is kind of on you. John Brooks, right? Here's a hot take. John Brooks is not good. Okay? He's not good.
Not anymore. He was, but he's not anymore.
Right. And I guess I never watched him in that phase when he was good, right? I watched him when the United States played Argentina way back, right? And I had to sit here and watch him, and I just watched us play boom ball. I had to watch that. I wasn't a fan, and maybe it's just because I wasn't a fan of any of the players on the field at that time, but I'm not a fan, okay? And
That was
I'm not
definitely part of it.
right. I'm just not a fan now. Okay, so I don't care that he's not coming. I don't want to see him come. I don't think he's the future. But I can get behind potentially agreeing with. I think the reasons might be silly. Like if the reasons are that him and Berhalter butt heads or all that other stuff, I do think while it makes sense, it's kind of stupid. And it's silly, childish stuff. But Miles Robinson, if he wasn't hurt, he'd obviously be up there. Don't care for Mark McKenzie.
Yeah, we're gonna miss him a lot.
Dude, we're gonna miss him so much. He's so fast. He was like when this wave of players came in and we played that very first game, and I was like, "There's two guys with Robinson on the field," and I was like, "Dang, both these dudes are flying.
So fast.
They're so fast.
Yeah.
Like both of these guys." And I'm like, "Where have these guys been? Like these are just insanely quality players.
Where did they come from?
Right.
And I think I like Tim Ream as well. And his one big thing is that he is not fast. He is slow.
No, he gets
He's
torched.
He's not even an average speed player. He is slow.
He is slow.
Like he's got the experience. His positioning is good. His vision and passing, and like you said, the ability to build out of the back, he can do that. But he is slow.
Right.
So if you're going to have him in there, he needs to have a fast partner.
Right.
Or we're just going to get destroyed.
No, exactly. And starting the tactics conversation, right? I told everybody we get to this. If you're looking at the players that you're going to bring, right, and we're going to go to a big picture lens, right? If you've been sitting at home and you've been thinking about this roster, I want you to start thinking about it through this lens. You need to be able to bring a set of players that collectively can play a series of tactics that will work for you, right? So sometimes the 26 best players might not actually be the most ideal players because let's say that we had 6 center backs, right? And 4 of them were just full tilt. They were insane players. They could hit every single ball on a dime, but they weren't that great one-on-one defending. But then we had 2 guys who were pretty dirt slow, and they were really good at one-on-one defending. Your mentality shouldn't be just take the fastest 4, right? So when we're looking at like a Tim Ream and a Walker Zimmerman, right? I agree with what you just said, right? We can't have Zimmerman and Ream playing together at the same time, okay? Unless
it's not going to work.
Unless it's the 65th minute and we're beating England 1 or 2-0, and it's time to go into a low block and shut the game down, right? Then
and they're not getting a chance to play over the top anymore.
Right, because now you're taking out your Chris Richards, you're taking out your Cameron Carter-Vickers, you're putting Tim Ream in, right? You're dropping everybody back, right? You're pulling out your Josh Sargent from up front. You're dropping in your 5th defender, right? And maybe that's where Richards is pinching in, or somebody, and you're packing the box. But if you're going to go after England and Wales in the first part, you're right. You're not starting both of them. And so if you're thinking about the players you're going to bring in, is that something Greg is considering? Because I'd have to believe, like me going into this, if I was the coach for the men's team, I would have to start to think, okay, how do I plan on beating each of these teams, right? I see Wales being a game I could probably.
I hope he's thinking about that.
Well, I know this is like what a mind blowing statement, revolutionary thought. The coach is thinking about how to win, right? But so let me rephrase. So as you're thinking about how to beat these teams, right? I'd have to believe Wales is going to be a pretty comfortable game. It's going to be a battle, right? It could be very close, but that probably means you need to be expected to go for it for 90 minutes, right? So I need a squad of guys who are going to be able to go.
Wales is going to try to counterattack.
Right.
They are not going to try to control the game. They're going to be happy to sit and defend, and then, they have some fast players and some really good attack strikers, and they're going to counterattack.
Right. And so we're going to need guys, that have that pace and that can move. But before I could feel us going to this group comparison, and I'm so excited about it, but we can't get there yet. So
do the roster.
We're going to save that. We're going to save that. We'll put a pin in that one. Let's go to our backs. Right. We'll start on the right back. Okay. Who do you have? Let's say you could take 2. Right. Who's your starting right back and who's your backup?
Even though he's not my favorite player, Serginho Dest is still the best right back we have. As far as skills, and he's not the best defender, but he is a good enough defender. He adds enough going the other way that I test as my starting right back. I am not taking DeAndre Yedlin. I can't stand him. Um, so my other right back, I'd probably go with Reggie Cannon, I think.
Yeah, I could get behind that pick. I could get behind that, and I agree with you.
He's not as flashy, but he is consistent.
Yep. And the other thing that I've heard that I know people like about him is that Reggie Cannon can also he's pinched in and played as a center back at times, as his team has shifted from a back three to a back four, and so
Yeah, he is a little bit more versatile.
he gives you a little bit more versatility. And I do think it's Serginho Dest no matter what. But again, no matter what, being that Serginho Dest is not the best defender. He's got a lot of pace, but he's really a guy that we have in transition as we attack with the ball, and he's somebody who can make a lot of overlapping runs, like Sergio Ramos, right? Like he's that guy who you're like, he's a defender, but he's always up in the attacking third, right? He's the guy that we need to get the ball in, right? He can score goals for us. He gets shots on goal. He's that young, attacking-minded player, but you're going to need a player like Reggie Cannon. And if not Reggie Cannon, I'm partial to Shaq Moore. He has been hit or miss for me. I really liked him when he first came onto the scene. And then a whole string of games went by, and I was like scratching my head, like, is this the same guy I started watching? Like, this guy's really stinking it up there. But he does have experience playing with Nashville. He has played alongside Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman. If Long happens to make the roster, it's something to consider. But also Nashville either did get knocked out. I think they got knocked out of the MLS playoffs, so that's also awkward because now those players aren't playing. Anyway, neither here nor there, I guess. I picked my two. I'll take Dest and Cannon. Going to left back, we have Anthony Robinson, right? That's basically a lock. I'm bringing Joe Scally. I'm bringing Joe Scally as my second player. I'm not taking George Bello. I'm not taking Sam Vines. Sam Vines against the two friendlies we had was atrocious. Atrocious. He's not coming with me.
He would have been my pick, I think, based on last year's games up to like this summer.
Oh, hands down, agreed. I loved him.
Pick for the backup.
I was like, who is this guy? He was great. Vines was great. He was almost on my starting roster.
His recent games have not. Yeah, his recent games have not been near that quality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like Scally. He's young, he's making a big impact, and he's somebody who like this is how I thought about that position. I never see Anthony Robinson coming off the field ever. Unless he's hurt.
Yeah, this is only if he gets hurt.
Right. And so why not bring, the young kid to give him a bunch of experience to see where he goes, because I just don't think you're going to get the same thing in Bello and Vines. But all right, here we go. This one seems kind of locked up too, even though I completely disagree with what everybody else's picks were. We're going to go into the defensive midfield. Okay, so you have three midfielders, right? And I don't care how you and I do this. They have it broken up into defensive mid, attacking mid. I really don't care. But who are your midfielders that you're bringing that make up the center? And so I'll kind of list. Actually, I don't really care how you go to do it. I'll let you start this one off. You get to bring. What are we at? How many midfielders? We've done 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got 18 spots left, or I guess we're at 11. So we have 15 spots left. 6
spots left, yeah.
So 15 spots and 6. So you can bring 9 midfielders. You can bring 10. You can bring 10 midfielders. Who are your 10 midfielders that you're bringing, and where are they playing?
10 is a lot.
Yeah, I think it's excessive, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
we'll do 7, and then if we have more to add later, we can do that.
That sounds like a better idea. I was going to say 8, but yeah, give me your 7.
McKennie and Adams are without a doubt. Yunus Musa is there. Taking Luca De La Torre. I'm taking. Let's see. Hard too, because they're counting some hard to know exactly who they count as a midfielder or a forward. Because I would probably put Gio as a midfielder. They might count him as a forward.
They're counting,
I would
so like
put
they
Gio
count
as
as
a
like
midfielder.
wingers too. So like that, like in our system, right? Like we have guys who play like as wingers, and sometimes it looks like they're in the midfield, but like in our system, the wingers are playing up front in like that right wing or left wing.
True.
But
That
yeah,
is true.
I could see Gio being a guy that you could get away with playing in the midfield.
So that's 5 so far.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Um, I'm not bringing Kellen Acosta, and I'm not bringing Sebastian Lletget. I would probably bring Busio, just again as one of those guys who's probably not going to play at all. But I still want him there to get the experience because I think he's going to be good later on. So that's 6. So let's do one more. I have to bring Kellen Acosta.
I know, right? Like you look at the rest of the thing and you're
No,
like,
I don't want
dang,
to.
like I'm stuck bringing this dude. I'm not going to have much of a difference from you, right?
I guess I'd bring Kellen Acosta, even though I don't really want to.
Right. And the only argument that can be made for that is, right, if you look at just our system, right? So maybe not the tactics you or I would play. The United States plays as center defensive midfielder. And outside of Tyler Adams, we're like kind of shoulder shrugging, right, to find somebody else.
Wrong one.
Right. And so we need at least another center defensive midfielder.
Unless one backup.
Unless
yes,
Berhalter and the entire United States Soccer Federation are just going to flip a switch and change their tactic, right, we probably got to bring Acosta. But I do agree with you. I really like Gianluca Busio. My brother loves him. That's like my brother's favorite player right now. Ryan is super bummed that he just kind of stopped coming to games. Like he just fell out of favor. I thought he did really well in the Gold Cup and the Nations League. He reminded me of like a really young Stu Holden, right? Like the passes he hit were very dangerous. He wasn't winning a ton of tackles, and he had some games where like he did a little too much, but most of the balls that he had were really good. He had a couple shots, hit the crossbar. He just looked really threatening.
Part of him being young,
right? And just like a lot of the young players that we had, they didn't have the shot power, right, through volume or whatever. And so like sometimes their shots like weren't as dangerous as they could have been. But if I'm looking at my starters, right, I have Tyler Adams in there. I'm gonna have Weston McKennie, and I mean you're probably gonna wind up with Yunus Musa, but for me, like Yunus Musa and De La Torre, they do like the same thing for me. I know they don't on the field, but like as far as skill level and talent goes, that's kind of how I feel about both of them. I would rather have a Gianluca Busio in that mix, like a player like him, maybe with more experience, just to see. A player that's fallen way out of favor is I kind of liked Matthew Hoppe when he started. I know that he kind of like hasn't gone anywhere. I'm like looking through the list of these players and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's been a long time since we've seen some of these dudes and I really like them. I mean, it gives us hope for the future, but yeah, I mean, you're thinking Weston McKennie, Luca De La Torre. I could tell you who I don't want to see Christian Roldan anywhere on this roster at all.
I'm okay with that.
And then yeah, I don't want to see. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll put Gio Reyna in there, right? Like Gio Reyna is listed on a couple sites as an attacking center midfielder. So as long as I don't have to see Sebastian Lletget, which I don't think we're gonna, he's kind of out of it. And a Christian Roldan, I'll take Gio Reyna, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Luca De La Torre, and Kellen Acosta and Gianluca Busio. Those would be the guys that I'm taking.
That's fair.
Here's the depth spot, and I'll kind of run through it. I don't know how much of a disagreement you and I are going to get into, right? But we got our wingers. So for the left wing, right, we got, well, I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. We got Christian Pasilic, right? I'm taking him. Timothy Weah, I'm taking him. Brendan Aronson, I'm taking him.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? I don't really think there's any doubt in there. But then I got to take another winger. And
that's where probably they would count Reyna in that. Most people would put Reyna in that as
right.
that winger.
And I agree. If I had to take another winger, that's who I would want, because my other options are Paul Arriola and Jordan Morris, and I don't want to take either one of them. Like, I think if we're stuck playing one of those two guys, we've already lost. And I know that Paul Arriola is tenacious.
This is where I would look at some of those players that have played multiple positions that, we tend to see as strikers that could fit in as wingers, like Matthew Hoppe or Josh Sargent. They are very capable of playing as a winger.
Mm-hmm. And like Morris just hasn't. I mean, I know that's where he played for us when he was out there, but like he just doesn't do anything, right?
He runs around a lot,
right? And I guess
that's about it.
This kind of like, granted, these guys are like strikers, right? So it also kind of goes into the bigger picture of tactically, it matters who I'm bringing as a striker, right? So like for me, I would love to see Josh Sargent. I would love to see Jordan Pefok, and I would love to see, like, I would be bringing Haji Wright. Just because, I mean, he's your third striker. He's probably not going to play, but I think the guy's got potential. And he was scoring goals in the Turkish League. I know the Turkish League's like, but like he was scoring a lot of goals. And also, I don't want to bring Ricardo Pepi, and I don't want to bring Jesus Ferreira. I just don't want to bring those guys. And so because of that, the wingers that I want to bring look a little bit different, because they're, like, if it's P-Falk, they might be guys that are driven more towards getting the ball in the box, right? So maybe Brendan Aronson can play on the wing for me, right? But I could also see, like, Brendan Aronson slid in the center for Leeds at times. I could also see us going Christian Pasilic on the left, Brendan Aronson up front, and playing like Timothy Weah out on the right, and just trying that out. Like, we have a bunch of different options.
If you're gonna talk about a starting lineup, for me, starting lineup, some of our strikers that we have out there are good enough to me to start. I would be happy playing Aronson, Pulisic, Weah, and Reyna some way in the front four.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would play Adams and McKennie as our center mids, and as our center attacking mid, probably Gio Reyna, and then have Pulisic and Weah on the wings, and like you said, probably Aronson up top. Those three.
What do you think it would even look like if Pasilic played in that holding striker, and he just played as a false nine, right? Like,
he absolutely could do it. He's done it for Chelsea a few times, and it worked really well when he had the right other players around him. It worked terribly with certain certain combinations.
A train wreck of guys around him,
a few others.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about the group of guys that the United States has, right? Like, I could think about, look at the guys we just named. Those seem like a good set of guys to be around him. But thinking more realistically, the reason that I pick these guys as my striker is because at the end of the day, you need strikers going in who can hit the back of the net, and they have confidence to do that, okay? You are not playing pushover teams. Your group is Wales, your group is England, and your group is Iran. Even you and I playing in like pickup leagues, when I would score a couple goals a game and you would score a couple goals a game, you could string that in, right? And you got to the point where once you scored a goal in 4 or 5 different games, right? And this happened with my brother and I in hockey. Granted, sure, it's a beer league, whatever. But after about the 5th game of scoring a goal, your brain mentality shifted to, it's not if I'm going to score a goal, it's when or how many, right?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
you have this confidence, right? And for people who haven't played the game, right? You hear guys talk about this, right? The confidence, right? The guy's got the confidence. What that really looks like is you all of a sudden start believing in yourself a little bit more. So positions that you get the ball where maybe you wouldn't have shot before, you're trying something now. And the more confidence you have, just like with anything you do in life, right? This could even be like woodworking, right? Whatever hobby you have, the more confidence you have to do something, the more risks you're willing to take, the more potential reward is on the other end of it. And we don't
And
have strikers who can do that.
the other side of that too is the more confidence you have in your ability, the less you're thinking about what you're doing and you're not overthinking it.
That's so true. That's so true. Right. It's just like when I would play with you or I play with my brother, like when you got the ball, I knew where I was going, and because of my form and because of your form, you knew where I was going, and you just went, right? And we as a team, and I'm not talking about the United States, I'm talking about the players individually on the field around them. They don't have a player that they can think to themselves, we need to generate a goal scoring opportunity to boost morale. I got to get the ball to them. Instead, we have guys who are busting their butt trying to think of something, and you can see it on the field. Swing the ball in the box, and they freeze because there's nobody there, right? You and I have played with these players, right? Where, like, your coach is ripping on you. Why haven't you just played the ball to him? Brandon would do this all the time. Why didn't you play the ball to this guy? Well, because I want to keep the ball. Like, I want my team to have possession. Like,
because if I play it to him, he's going to lose it.
Right, he's going to lose it. And maybe at first, Jesus Ferreira hadn't earned that. But, like, if I'm Serginho Dest, after I play that ball, unmarked, 6-yard line, header, you don't even hit the net, you're not getting another ball. Like, you're not getting another ball. I'm just going to go to somebody else and try to do it myself. I'm going to do something creative, right? And that's a horrible mentality. So you think about confidence, not just from an individual player's perspective, from the team perspective.
That's true. It undercuts the whole team.
Right. And if you have a guy like Jordan Pefok who's informed, right? Like, think about, all right, this is an extreme example, right?
Now.
But this is an extreme example. Think about Erling Haaland. Every single player on Man City is thinking, get him the ball, right? Kevin De Bruyne is just looking for
even
him.
They're just thinking, if I play a ball anywhere in the box, he's going to be near it.
He's gonna be near it and get for it. So the confidence that you have, right? Now, we can start this kind of tactics thing, right? So if you're listening, follow us. The kind of confidence that creates on the field, here's how the whole game changes. If you have a single striker who can do that, now other guys on the field have the option to hit that ball sooner. If they have the option to hit that ball sooner, someone has to press them sooner. If a defender's pressing them sooner, that gives more space to that center forward, which means when that center forward gets the ball, it's more likely he's in a one-on-one position. It's more likely he's going to score. But we don't have that. And so what do we see? We see our most talented players, Basilic, McKennie, Adams, in the games against Japan, in the games against Saudi Arabia, getting double teamed and having a very high press to a mid press because they're looking behind themselves and they're going, go for it. Play the ball back here.
Exactly. They're not afraid of anything coming behind them. And so, yeah, like you said, every time Basilic gets the ball, every time Aronson gets the ball, they get pressed real hard. And so, like in Japan, had a lot of possession. We passed the ball around across the midfield 100 times because we didn't have anybody up there to make the incisive, dangerous scoring plays.
Right. And obviously I'm referencing some of the best players in the world as I'm mentioning this, but like you think about Lionel Messi, right? Lionel Messi can score from all over the pitch. Because of that, players have to close him down. But if you close him down, what does he do? He dribbles you, he goes around you. But the fact that he's a threat of that caliber, right? And he's not the only player. There are players that are beneath him that have the same kind of a threat. They have to get stepped to. And you combine this with all the stuff we've been talking about, the confidence, the composure, all these things. We need to have that. And so I'm taking Josh Sargent. Why? Because he's scoring goals. And that means he has the confidence to try to hit one, right? That I'm believing that Jordan Pefok and Josh Sargent will step out on the field, okay? Because I want you then, we're gonna go there. The weight that is going to be pressed on all of these players. This is the first time back in the World Cup. You are playing against Wales, right? If you don't win your first game, there's like an 80% chance you're not even going to make it out of the group. We know we're playing England second, which means if we don't beat Wales, we're probably just not getting out of the group. Even with a win against Iran, it's not going to happen. Because if Wales beats us, they're going to beat Iran. England's going to beat us in Iran. We're out of here, right? That means our striker has to have the confidence to be able to take that deep breath and go.
First minute. Yeah.
Right. And go, I got this. And not panic when they get that first ball and believe in themselves. You can play me this ball because not only am I going to score, I want to score. I want to score for the United
Yeah,
States.
absolutely.
I want to end this drought that we've been here for 4 years. I want to go for it. And I need a player who's at least been scoring goals, right? And you and I were joking around about it before I hit the record button. Jesus Ferreira, 18 goals, 9 assists in the MLS. And who's the first player that you brought up?
Josh Sargent.
Mm-hmm. And then,
no,
yeah. You talked about Josh Sargent,
the
but who's
English ones?
Yeah, the English one.
Talking about Phil Foden, yeah.
Right. And I was just like, what a great comparison, right? Like you say Phil Foden, and all of a sudden it's like, who cares about Jesus Ferreira?
Yeah. Because they're talking about, great young players, and, obviously Phil Foden is like the young English player. And yeah, Jesus Ferreira won the MLS Young Player Award. And you just want to look at that and say, it does not compare at all.
Right.
What the other young players are doing.
Right. And he just like, it goes back to like this like pet peeve that I have, which is turning into obviously much more than a pet peeve. That's like a festering sore on my eye of U.S. soccer, which is that the federation just loves certain players, and we love the MLS, and I don't know if we want to hype up and sell jerseys. I don't know what it is, but we got to get away from this, right? This is not solely about the U.S. Soccer Federation. This is about the World Cup. This is about like the world's image of this. This should be what the U.S. Soccer Federation cares about the most, and we shouldn't be having, coaches like Greg Berhalter who are in the back pocket, if you're following all that stuff of this, to play certain players to fit some kind of agenda, which like it's even hard for me to believe because it just doesn't make any sense. But we just got to get away from it, right? So that all of that being said, though, to do the second half of what we kind of talked about, here's what I'm worried about. I don't think Tim Ream's going to come. I don't think he's going to be on a roster. I think our two starting center backs are going to be Walker Zimmerman and Aaron Long. I think we're going to wind up with Serginho Dest and DeAndre Yedlin playing 50-50 splits in random games. And I think we're going to have Anthony Robinson and, I'm hopeful that it's Joe Scally just because I looked at the list and there's really not anybody else. But again, like I said, it's not like Robinson's not going to play anyway. I think in the center midfield, I am actually hopeful that Roldan is just not going to come. So I think as far as the center midfield goes, with the exception of like we're not going to see Buzio probably, but we will see Kellen Acosta, I can actually live with all of that. I think all of that is fine. I'm really worried that we're going to have Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola and Ricardo Pepi and Jesus Ferreira all in those starting four, and that while that means we probably won't see Jordan Pefok, it also means we might not see Josh Sargent, which to me is like insanely scary because my hopes and dreams for the World Cup just go right out the window if not just one, but both of those guys aren't on that plane.
See that, yeah, because like you said, those four that you mentioned, you said Pepe, Morris, Arriola, and Ferreira, they are not seeing the level of play that the other guys are playing. You can talk about the MLS, and they're starring in the MLS, and Sargent is only playing in the championship, and it's like, the English championship, the top half of it, probably better than the MLS.
Oh, easily the top half of it.
So
if not the whole thing.
Yeah, maybe it's hard to compare exactly, but I would certainly make the case that the championship, the top half of the championship, is better than the MLS, and Sargent is performing really well in the championship. Granted, he struggled a little bit last year. Last year, he didn't really play a good spot for him. He was kind of playing second man to Timu, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
So he didn't perform well there, and I think that's why he, kind of lost favor. Yeah, I agree with you. Strikers, we definitely should see Sargent and Pefok, and if, like you said, if neither of them is there, you don't have somebody who believes that they can score a goal against anybody in the world.
Right. And the other thing from a bigger perspective, right, that I'm going to be concerned with is, as a coach, you want to create a culture that makes your players believe if you work hard and you play well, then you'll earn a spot, right? Like, this isn't a club team where you have money and you can handpick the players. This is the national team. These are supposed to be the best players that have the nationality of this team, that are citizens of this country. And the reason that I'm using that specific language is because that's just the reality of it. So if you're one of those people who like looks into Jordan Pefok and you're just like, this guy's not an American, listen, buddy, like Christian Pasilic could technically also not be an American, but like there's lots of players playing for Mexico's team.
Croatia, I think.
Yeah, he could have played for Croatia. So like there are players that are born in the United States that are playing for Mexico, right? And we're constantly trying to get them. There's like Canadian, like it happens everywhere. It happens literally all over the place. This is nothing new. Players are choosing and declaring at 18 years old and playing for multiple countries until then. So this is just how it works. If you don't like it, just chew on it until you can swallow it and deal with it. But that being said, if I want to convince my players that I'm taking the best that has to represent, how do I look at a player like Josh Sargent, who's in form scoring goals, or a player like Jordan Pefok, who's in form scoring goals, and look at them and say, sorry, buddy, you're not good enough? Right? Like to take an Aaron Long who's playing for Nashville FC. Right. To take an Aaron Long who's playing for Nashville FC, who's not even playing that great, and then look at Tim Ream, who's playing for Fulham, and be like, sorry, buddy, you didn't make the cut. And that stands true for John Brooks as well, right? Like, and you know, like I could also kind of get behind that, but that's just kind of where I am, and I just don't see how we're doing ourselves any favors.
But second half of last year, Wolfsburg struggled, and he was a big reason why they struggled.
Mm-hmm. And I don't like
honestly,
the guy. You're not hurting my feelings.
They are this year. I haven't paid as close attention, but I don't think he is in good form, even for his club team.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people hopefully chirping us and saying like, yeah, he is. I mean, there's a bunch of people who love John Brooks who have been talking about John Brooks for forever, but so. All of this now being said, right? The roster is our hopes, our fears. Looking at everything we got to look at now. The roster that we created, who is your starting 11 against Wales?
Wales. Well, like we said, I think Wales is going to sit back a little more and be, more counterattacking. And so I definitely want we said starting goalie is going to be Turner. I'm probably going with Zimmerman and Richards, honestly, because Zimmerman is so good on the aerial battles, and his positioning on the one-on-ones and that kind of thing are very good. So I'm taking Zimmerman. I'm taking Richards because of his, just physical attributes. He's not as fast as, Robinson, but he is still fast. And obviously our outside backs are pretty set. It's Destin, Robinson, Adams, and McKennie in the middle. I would start with Pulisic and Weah on the wings, and I mean, I know we want to be able to possess the ball against Wales, but we need somebody who's also going to attack their defense. So I'm dropping Musa, I think, and I'm putting probably Reyna in there because he has that instinct to drive at the defense, to try to cut through the defense, and we need somebody who's going to do that. Mm-hmm. And then probably my striker, I'll probably put Jordan Pefok up there just because he will finish the ball. Mm-hmm. And we're going to need to score, probably going to need to score more than one goal against Wales. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's like funny listening to you list up these players because I'm just like, man, we talk about soccer too much. Because I thought the exact same thing, right? As I looked at this, I thought to myself, all right, so if Wales likes to play in the counterattack and Wales has done any kind of research, they know that the United States struggles in a low block, right? Now, granted, they could also put a mid block in their midfield, but as a team who wants to counterattack, maybe they don't have to do that. So I know that as a striker, I need a player who I can have confidence to just whip the ball in the box and expect to make dangerous chances happen. That's somebody who wins the ball in the air but can also do stuff at their feet. I'm putting Jordan Pifak in there all day. That leaves me Christian Pasilic and Weah, who can both make that happen because I can give Pasilic a rest with Aronson if I need to. I can give Weah a rest with Aronson if I need to, or even Sargent out there on the wing if I need to.
Absolutely.
And it gives me a lot of that versatility if I have to do that. I can completely get behind Yunus Musa switching for Reyna. I think the only reason we wouldn't see that is if of Reyna's fitness. I just don't know how many minutes that we're going to see him have, but if he's playing 100%, I'd love to see him start. And I completely agree, right? That's the one thing that Musa sort of brings that Reyna also brings, and I think you're right, Reyna does it better, is that he just goes at the other team. So if Weston's fresh and Weston wants to be that guy, by all means play Musa. If you want to see Weston sit a little bit more and try to hit higher balls down the flanks, then let's get Reyna in there. And I agree with the entire back five. Like, they're really, no questions asked. We need Dest out there on the right. We need Robinson out there on the left. We need Richards for his pace in the counterattack. We need Zimmerman for his experience and his size, when it comes to marking those aerial balls. So I'm hoping that we can take down Wales here. I don't think a 2-0 result is out of the question.
I would probably say 2-1 if I had to put a score on it.
Agreed. I don't think we're going to get a clean sheet.
Wales is pretty dangerous. I would probably say 2-1.
So, looking at this England game, okay, because we talk tactics, right? We've talked rosters and stuff. The more I look at England's roster, the more that I believe I could see us getting beat anywhere from 3-6-0. And I'm not saying we can't win the game. I'm not saying we can't win the game. I'm just saying I'm looking at their roster and thinking, if we play like we played against Japan, we're going to lose 5 or 6-0.
Yes, it is going to take. And it's going to take the perfect game from us, and it's going to take some struggles from them. But on the other hand, like, England, they just get in their own way sometimes, and I think part of it is. And this was true, I think it's a little less true now, but this was very true back in like the mid-2000s, when they had like Lampard and Steven Gerrard and a few of those guys who, they were dominating the Premier League, and they were like, our English team is going to be amazing. And part of the problem was they hated each other. I think there is still some of that in England. You have guys like Foden, and Saka, and Harry Kane, and Raheem Sterling, who I don't think they necessarily play well together when they do come together. Mm-hmm. And so I am hopeful that we can take advantage of that. And, maybe there is some discontinuity in their game and we can strike back at them. No, I completely agree with you, because all those guys that I just listed are all like top of the Premier League players. They're all in the top 5 teams, and what's supposed to do against that? Mm-hmm. So I could see it being we win 1-0, or I could see it being we lose 4-0.
Yep. And it's something to to just think about as we sort of wrap this thing up. Every single World Cup, there has been some giant powerhouse team that has just made a blunder of the group stage, right? The group stage is just a completely different beast than the rest of it. And I think the big reason of that is the fact that we play teams from all over the world, and you don't have teams that are similar to you if they can avoid it within your group. Whereas when you leave your group, you tend to be playing against the same powerhouse nations who play this, players that you've played against in your Premier Leagues, players you've played against in your Champions Leagues. But, watching Bafana tie France, right? Watching France just pack their bags and leave. Granted, they came back and won the World Cup the next year, but just like completely give up. Watching Germany one of the favorites just like scratch their head and just like get absolutely swamped, right? Like
happened twice in a row with Spain won the World Cup, and then the next World Cup just like
the next World Cup absolutely gone. We watched Italy not even make it.
Germany bombed out.
Yep. Yeah. And you're right. Watch Italy not even make it. Right. You win the Euros, but you didn't qualify for the World Cup. Like there are massive, massive nations. Right. Brazil, that favorite, smashing everybody. They make it to the semifinal, and Germany just embarrasses them, right? And like embarrassing is like putting it kindly.
I enjoyed that game.
Right. It was I literally sat on my couch with my dad, and after the first goal went in, we were like, oh man. Like, yo, we got a game. And the second one went in, and we were like, yo, let's go. This is a game right now, man. Brazil better. And then the third one went in, and we very quickly were like, wait a minute. Something's wrong. And then the fourth one went in, and we were like, no, something's wrong. Like, and we went from, like, enjoying the game to, like worried that there was, like, some attack happening. Like, and it just, it obviously just kept getting worse. But, tangent aside, those games happen, and it's not out of the realm of possibility for England to have some scruff between themselves, to play a team like Iran, who's going to play tactics they've never seen, who's going to play players they probably haven't played against, and have Iran just pull, like when South Korea just kind of had those like squeaky goals, right? To just kind of really push Germany out,
Absolutely.
to just get those scrappy ones. The game that we had against Brazil in the Confederations Cup, granted we lost 3-2, but we had those 2 goals early on, and we could have packed the box and held on. A game like that could happen, and England could be coming up to the United States, and we could have just beaten Wales, where England is concerned. Their fans are frustrated. Their media is embarrassed, right? And they're in this negative mindset, hoping to use the United States to step out of. And it doesn't matter how you feel about our team or their team. If you look at the match history between England and the United States, it has not been bad for us. It might not have been favorable, but it has not been bad.
Absolutely.
And so
I do think that our players should approach that game with confidence. Like you said, we absolutely can win that game, and they should go into it believing that we can and that we will win.
Right.
However, I won't be terribly surprised if we get beat.
Correct. Right. And I agree. We need to walk into that game with confidence. Most of the players on our starting lineup have played for Premier League teams that are at the top of their table, or had been the top of their table for a while. They'd played in the Champions League. I mean, Pasilic scored massive goals in the Club World Cup, right? He literally won the FIFA Club World Cup with Chelsea. He played in most of those games. I mean, we have been there, and from a fan perspective, the way that I'm looking at this England game is, if for as much as I've talked about England, for as much as I've said these players are incredible, I feel the exact same way about our guys, and I don't have a single player that I don't think can go toe-to-toe with anybody, right? And sure, maybe our defenders aren't that great, but if you're like, well, what about in the midfield? I'm like, well, we got Weston McKennie. We got Christian Pasilic. Both of those guys can go head-to-head. Tyler Adams is playing in the Premier League. Brendan Aaronson's playing in the Premier League. Matt Turner's playing in the Premier League. Like, we have the same number of guys, right? And while England should probably be beating us, Leeds United probably shouldn't have beat Chelsea. So this is soccer, man. Anything can happen, and that's what I'm so excited for. And we are literally, it is the 18th. We are about to be under 30 days for this World Cup, and I am beyond excited. I am beyond excited. Well, Chris, this was a pleasure as always. I am glad that you're able to join me again. I hope that you guys are enjoying this. Leave some comments. Hit that like button. We would love to hear from you guys. If this is something that you're interested in and you just enjoy this kind of content, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get notified when we post new videos. We're doing a lot better a job of trying to get them posted weekly. Unsure what we're going to talk about next week, but we had a bunch of stuff planned for this week, and things change with all sorts of, rumors and trades and all those other things and injuries. So we look forward to talking to you guys next week about just some U.S. player updates and a little bit more of the group comparison. Chris, any final thoughts?
Like you said, it's about 30 days away. I'm just pumped. I just want to see it.
That's right. So let us know what you're the most excited for, or how you're getting ready, or how you're going to be pumped, face paints, whatever it's got to be. We look forward to hearing those, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.